with that game behind us, I think it's time for us to step over and do the news. Now, our top story today concerns some ship balance changes to the U.S. battleship split. But of course, before we get there, let's wander over to this article. And this right here is something we talked about a little bit already in today's stream. The Lighthouse auction is now featuring Musashi. Musashi is a former free XP ship that is now, of course, extremely rare and has been removed from the game. We used to talk about Musashi being the secret tier 10. This boat was basically Yamato at tier 9 with extremely minimal changes. And so now they're bringing it to the Lighthouse auction. You and your friends and everybody you know will be able to bid on the Musashi for doubloons, and those who bid the highest will be able to take one home. One of the things we were kind of chatting about a little bit in stream earlier is, you know, what this means. Who's going to pay how much for a Musashi? And we're all curious about that. Of course, we'll see how it winds up going. It does look like you can bid on Musashi. There is a brilliant engineer captain, which has cool art here. It's this guy with the cool hat and the glasses. We've got 100,000 coal, which they often bid or place available for the auction. And the Musashi commemorative flag, which I'll be honest, that's a really cool looking flag. Kind of a yellow sort of sun flag, or the yellow dot there with the samurai type swords, the Japanese traditional swords across it. Pretty slick. Musashi is a Yamato-class battleship, it says, and the only sister ship of Yamato to be commissioned. She's got 9 powerful 460mm guns and a very long firing range. Her turrets traverse very slowly, a large HP pool, good armor protection, solid torpedo protection, high detectability, mediocre speed and maneuverability, and not the best AA. I'm surprised they didn't mention that in here. But most people, I think, by now are familiar with Musashi. They might have one if you've been gaming with World of Warships for a while, or maybe you've fought one and you're aware of what it can do. There's some question, of course, about whether or not Musashi is still as powerful as she once was, with super ships and so many other battleships added to the game. But I think that the historical context and the general power of the ship, Yamato at tier 9, is going to lure a lot of people in. So are you guys going to bid on Musashi? Do you already have a Musashi? Do you know people who are bidding on Musashi? I wish you guys the best if you decide to go that way. But of course, as we said earlier, right, if you're going to bid on this boat, you get to set the price. And if there's a price you won't pay, don't put that number in the box and click submit, right? So make sure you're looking to submit a price that you think is fair for what it's all about. Thomas says, Japanese detectives normally had engineering backgrounds. It's pretty typical. I'm surprised you didn't know that. Another thing before we go and talk about the American battleships is a couple of changes to test ships. Now, a lot of times I won't bother to go over the test ship changes in detail. A couple of boats I think that people have been following fairly closely. One of those is San Diego, which did get some changes here, but we also see some changes to Iwami and Aquila. So some changes to the British battle cruisers that are forthcoming. Largely what we're seeing here is maximum damage reduced, an increase in accuracy. The Sigma is going up for Duncan and St. Vincent, and seeing a firing range increase on St. Vincent, as well as on Duncan and Rook. So minor changes really to the British battle cruisers. But if we skip past that, we see the Iwami. Now, Iwami is about to be, well, I don't know exactly when it's going to be released actually, but Iwami is a coal boat that will be released sometime soon. It is a tier 9 Japanese battleship that you'll be able to pick up for coal, like I said. And originally when they rolled this out, they were like, hey, a Japanese brawler, this thing's going to be sick. And then it really wasn't that. They started tweaking it and changing it and adapting it. They did increase its armor, so it got a deck armor buff a while back. We saw that on one of the other blog posts. And now what they've done, or then they added some really long torpedoes to it, which they announced on the dev blog as well. And now what they've done here is they've increased the Sigma from 1.9 to 2.1, which is going to be a very, very good Sigma for any battleship. Iwami has 410mm guns, if memory serves me correctly. If I'm wrong, guys, let me know in chat. Which means it's not going to pen everything from every angle, right? 410s, you still have to make sure you're looking for appropriate broadsides and aiming the appropriate portions of the ship to get that work done. Jimbo, welcome to the show. Thank you for your traditional joke there. And the main battery firing range was also increased. So seeing a change to Sigma that increases the accuracy at range, and then seeing a range increase and seeing the really long, they're 20-kilometer torpedoes they've placed on Iwami. That tells me, honestly, that Iwami is not a brawler anymore. That might have been the original plan, but it's not a brawler anymore. It's going to be like a battleship version of Yoshino, question mark? I don't know. We'll see when she comes out. I don't know. You know, I've heard some folks asking about Iwami. It's been discussed on our Discord. I know we've got some folks who are looking forward to getting that ship, and I'm curious if you guys will wind up getting it, you know, and what your thoughts are on Iwami up to this point, just having read about it in the blog articles. Of course, all the people who've played Iwami, our STs and our clan testers, are unable to spill the beans directly. So I, too, am waiting on some legitimate news about Iwami. So hopefully we see that boat released pretty soon, and we start seeing it in the wild in the hands of people who are post-testing stroke. Aquila is getting a torpedo damage reduction from 8,300 down to 7,133. When we see that, that doesn't look like a ton of damage, but that's a pretty big adjustment. A lot of times we'll see adjustments in damage of a few hundred damage for things like torpedoes or citadels, or excuse me, AP hits. But that's a pretty big damage reduction for the torpedoes on Aquila. If you remember the dev blog where they announced Aquila, it's got some of the slowest aerial torpedoes in the game. I want to say they go like 30 knots. I think it's 30 knots. They're really, really slow. So now they're slow and they don't do as much damage as they used to do, which is a little bit interesting. We're also seeing flooding chance reduced by about 10%. So Aquila's getting a bit of a torpedo nerf. I'm not sure why that is. You know, again, I'm not an ST person, so I'm not playing Aquila. I don't know a ton about it. And I haven't seen that many in game, honestly. So I haven't really felt enough torpedo damage from an Aquila to be like, oh, thank goodness they nerfed this. But I guess, you know, they're seeing that it's a little too effective with torpedoes. San Diego is a boat that I know a lot of people, particularly on the North American servers, are very interested in. I don't know how popular this boat's going to be globally, but I can tell you on NA, people are pretty excited about San Diego. And we are seeing basically a sweeping set of nerfs to San Diego. So main battery firing range is coming way down. 16, that's a great number for a light cruiser. That's fantastic. 14.8 is way less than 16. It's 1.2 kilometers of nerf in range. The sap shell damage is coming down 150 points per max damage shell. That's kind of lame. Buff to reload time is coming way down too. It was 50% reload time buff. Now it's a 33% reload time buff. You can see what they're doing. They're combining that sap damage reduction with a reduction in reload booster to bring its overall damage output capability down. And so we're seeing, you know, kind of across the board nerfs. I've been saying buffs. If I've been saying buffs, these are nerfs. These are nerfs, nerfs, nerfs. Apologies if I said buff a million times. So nerf, nerf, nerf. Depth charge airstrike range is increased. That is a buff, actually, and a legitimate one this time. The range was 5 kilometers. It's going out to 7. So we are seeing San Diego take some nerfs here before it comes out. I don't know when they're going to release San Diego. Just like all of you guys at home watching the stream, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, I don't know anything that you guys don't know. I only have access to these open source services like the dev blog or the website. So if San Diego comes out here pretty shortly, it will be nerfed from what you've fought in battles previously. So hopefully they find something where it's still a very appealing ship, because I think a lot of people are interested in the San Diego. I think they're interested in this kind of sap reload booster gameplay, and maybe Austin and San Diego, you know, being ships that they're interested in. There just aren't a ton of those, so kind of interesting stuff. You know, DG, based on what we're seeing here, I would say the answer to that question is no, but I have to make those assumptions based on what we're seeing here in the dev blog. I think what I've seen on San Diego typically has been a steady release of nerfs over and over and over again from the initial release. We could go, maybe sometime we can take a look across all the dev blog articles, but I think largely San Diego has started strong and gotten nerfed and nerfed and nerfed as it's been in testing. Whereas like we see ships like Iwami, and Iwami started here and they buffed its armor, they buffed its torpedoes, they buffed its Sigma, they buffed its range. So Iwami's been coming up. We've seen San Diego come down. There may have been some other nerfs as well, or excuse me, some other buffs as well, but largely I think I've been seeing nerfs. If you guys have seen other things too, drop them in chat, let people know. Because again, this is an educational program, and sometimes I'm the one getting educated as well. I don't know what San Diego is going to cost. but we might be able to find out. That's a good question. Let's see if we can find out. You know, I'm not sure the currency. My guess right now, I'll go ahead and just lay out a guess and say that I think it's going to wind up being a doubloon ship, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Let's go back to our top story today, and we'll talk about ship balance changes, this time for the American, I call them the fat boy American battleships, but this was the US battleship split, where they kind of came out with a series of sniper battleships starting at tier 8. I'm talking Kansas, Minnesota, and Vermont. Taking a look at the changes to these. Now, these ships have been out for a while, and I like to see when Scotta, I just saw your screen name up there. We are seeing the repair party consumable. We're basically losing the standard US battleship, in fact, the standard battleship repair party that reloads in 80 seconds and swapping it for one that reloads in 40 seconds. That's the same as what we have on Massachusetts, is the reload time on Massachusetts's consumable of repair party is also 40 seconds. We're also seeing a change to Kansas engine parameters, where its acceleration in both forward and reverse directions is being significantly improved. I don't know what that means. I kind of wish they'd given us some numbers there, but we're going to see it be able to scoot from 0 to moving in a faster period of time. That's not going to increase the speed of the ship, but we are going to see an increased ability to accelerate. They might actually have, no, they don't have ship parameters in here. That's too bad. Minnesota is going to get that same hull repair buff, the 40-second reload instead of a 80-second reload. And then it's also getting an armor thickness increase from 25 to 38 millimeters on the athwartship raised bulkhead beneath the forward superstructure. Yeah, so that's underneath the superstructure at the front half of the boat, is going from 25 to 38. One of the reasons why that's kind of significant, I just like the word athwartship, it makes me laugh. One of the reasons why I think that's kind of significant is the front, these boats tend to be bow in at great range, and that 25 millimeter would suffer dropping shells that have been launched a great distance. They'd come in and drop, and you could pen 25 millimeters with a lot of HE spamming cruisers. 38 millimeters is going to push that number beyond the ability of a lot of HE spamming cruisers that have range to reach out to this guy, and destroyers and other things, to a range beyond what IFHE can typically get us to. So this is going to be really good to keep these ships from burning down. So we're seeing a kind of a pattern here, right? A readier access to repair party. So you're going to be able to use your repair parties twice as fast. Repair parties twice as fast. You're going to be able to contend with HE that comes in from range better. And then we've got the same engine parameters. You'll be able to scoot around from 0 to speed faster, just like we had with Kansas. The detectability is also being reduced. Now that's kind of interesting on these boats in particular, because these boats are very long reload times. I want to say their default reload time is like 40 seconds. So if it's 40 seconds, you have a 20-second bloom when you fire your guns, and then after that 20 seconds, you're going to go dark if you can, and then you can be dark for 20 seconds. So picture this. You're out there, you fire your big salvo, you wait your 20 seconds, you're under fire, your 38 millimeter armor is shrugging off those HE shells, you go dark, you hit the throttle, you move 2 kilometers, and then you light up your guns again, and you're not exactly where you were before, because you've got the ability to scoot up to full speed faster. All of these things kind of work together, and I think that's kind of an interesting combination of buffs. I'm not sure that that's really going to work out as I described there. We'll have to see when these ships come out, or when these changes, excuse me, come out. But I think this is a positive change for these battleships, and I'm glad. I'm currently working on Kansas, and this makes me look forward to Minnesota and Vermont a little bit more. I do like my California, but it does feel to me a little bit more nimble than my Kansas, and so perhaps the engine parameters here on Kansas being changed will be helpful. I don't know that California has that particular capability, but whatever. Downriver Rick says, anything that helps those battleships go from 0 to moving in less than a week and a half is certainly welcome. Looking at Vermont, we're seeing a little bit similar. So look at this. Kansas gets a couple of things. Minnesota gets 4 things. Vermont gets a longer list. Let's check it out. We got the reload of the repair parties going from 80 to 40. The amount of HP. Now, this is critical. This is new. We didn't see this on Minnesota. The amount of hit points restored from the consumable from damage received in the Citadel, including from torpedoes hitting the Citadel area, has been increased from 10% to 50%. In other words, this is much more recoverable from being Citadeled than it was before. So we're going to be able to heal back 50% of that Citadel damage instead of just 10%. That's a big buff. Engine parameters are changed in the same way as the other two ships. We're going to be able to get that acceleration up. Casemate side armor. Now this is different from the raised bulkhead beneath the forward superstructure athwartship armor, but it's going from 38 to 51. Again, 51 is a pretty stiff chunk of armor. That's going to really help keep that from being penned by smaller caliber fire. Detect is going from 18 down to 16. Now remember, 16.02 here is not after camo, after modules and upgrades and everything. So we can imagine a 20% pull off of that approximately. I think the way the math is consecutively added makes it not exactly 20%, but whatever. So that's going to be basically a little over 3 kilometers pulled off of that. So once you're done putting a camo and a captain on there, you're going to be down to about just under 13 kilometers of detectability in the Vermont. And again, that 40-second reload, with that reduced concealment, you'll be able to go dark a little bit here. I've seen some people in chat talking about brisk. I think that is probably going to be an interesting skill on these if it wasn't already. So you may see folks kitting these out with brisk. Looking at the Super Carrier United States, the tactical squadron's torpedo damage is dropping. Again, now this is much less than what we saw. We saw, over 1,000 damage reduction for the Aquila. This is much more in line with what I normally expect, right? We're losing 600 hit points of damage from the torpedoes on the United States. And the causing flooding chance is only reduced by 5%, but, that's still a reduction. So a couple of nerfs coming out for the super ship United States. Submarine changes. This is an interesting change as well for submarines. We're seeing some dispersion being added when launching torpedoes from pretty much every submarine. All of these guys are getting an 11 degree. Now this isn't minus 11, it's a dash. It confused me for a second. So they've got U69 dash, 11 degrees for bow and 3 degrees for stern tubes. This also says added dispersion when launching torpedoes, which implies to me that there was no dispersion before, but that could also be a translation error, so we may or may not have dispersion now, but I think we don't. And so the fact that we have any dispersion at all is news. And this is going to keep torpedoes from doing that conga line of submarines from doing that conga line of perfectly stacked on top of each other torpedoes, which will frustrate players who were utilizing that tactic to stack mega damage on very, very unsuspecting battleships. So we'll see, looks like more dispersion for the bow and less for the stern tubes, which is kind of interesting, except for on 4501, where it's kind of the other way around. And then below is the opposite of 4501. So kind of interesting that we're seeing these different numbers across the way. And then we're seeing for U190 and Salmon, we are seeing a reduced time before the forced descent when the Dove's dive capacity is depleted. So when you run out of dive capacity, there was some hang time there, and I have sat there waiting for these submarines to surface after I know their dive capacity is depleted, because I watched the little bar tick down, and they don't come up right away. I don't know what reduced means. We'll see how much faster those guys bubble to the surface, but that is a nerf to submarines as well. So all in all, we're seeing some submarine nerfs in this article, which I think will probably help the game. I don't know if I like 11 and 16 seems like a lot of dispersion for torpedoes coming right out of submarine tubes. But if it's better for game balance, if it's a little inconceivable, to use GMAC's term there, it might be a good game decision. So as we watch for these changes to come out, we'll see how submarine performance changes. And of course, we'll watch and see what Wargaming has to say about that, and if further nerfs, buffs, or changes are coming along. With that, guys, we are done with the news for today. I did want to say thank you very much for watching. If you're watching this live on Twitch, we're going to go back and hopefully win some games. We've been on a nasty losing streak today. If you're watching it later on YouTube, we'd love to have you come join us on Twitch. You can check us out at twitch.tv/ClydePlaysLive. Of course, right here at YouTube is a great place to be if that's where you are right now, which is youtube.com/C as in channel/ClydePlays, or you can just go search for Clyde Plays World of Warships, and my content will come right up. Other than that, though, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you back in the next battle. Take care of each other, Captains. Take it easy.
This has been the news on Clyde Plays Live.